Yo, what's up, guys? Have you ever wondered how Grow a Garden creates their plot systems, or have you ever wanted to create your own plot system but don't know where to get started or how to even start your plot system? Well, if you're one of those persons, then this video is for you. So without further ado, let's jump in and make these systems. First of all, you're gonna need your plots. If you do want these plots, just check in the description. For me, I'm just gonna do 4 plots. Delete your spawn. Okay, you don't need that if you're doing plot systems. Select all of our plots, right? Rename them to plot. As you highlighted all of them, right click on your explorer, group as folder. You want to name that folder plots. We want to add a remote event. In your replicated storage, you want to click remote event. You want to call that player plot joined, and then you want another one called player plot left. This is really not needed if you're going for a basic system. Should you want to do something on the local side for a player when they've joined or left, you know, maybe remove the plot or change a GUI from a plot or something like that, then that's where these remote events come in handy. In server script service, you want to add a server script. You want to get the plots folder, so which would be this one, and this folder is stored under workspace, right? So you want to say local plots equals workspace, wait for child, plots. Okay, so all we've done here is get the folder, right? Then want to say local rep equals game get service replicated storage, then local. So yeah, let's go local events equals, so in your replicated storage you want to group all of these. Okay, group as folder, you want to call them events. Now keep in mind, this is only if you're going to go more advanced coding. Okay, that's when you would include these two here, right? Because now you're not just relying on one script but 2 scripts. Okay, so we're going to say rep wait for child events. Okay, so now we want this script to run when the player joins the game. So we're going to say game.players player added connect function player. Okay, so now this will run as soon as the player joins the game. Okay, so now we will have the plots folder, which is over here in workspace. Now we need to get each and individual plot. Okay, so to do that we use a for loop. So we say for underscore comma plot in plots, which would be this, colon get children do, right? So what we're doing here is we're looping through every single plot over here. Okay, the reason for that is we want to check if these plots are owned, and if they're owned it needs to skip it. If they're not owned, it needs to assign that player that plot. Okay, so this is where we check that now. So if plot get attribute taken, then continue end. So what this is doing now is checking, is the plot's attribute taken? If it is taken, then skip it, because we don't want to give another player's plot to another player. Otherwise you'll have duplicate owners. Okay, or that plot will just be given to a new owner, and that we don't want that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, because if this is not true, then we wanted to assign the plot to the player, right? So then we're going to say plot set attribute taken comma true, right? So now we're setting it to true, that it is being taken now. Okay, and we're going to say plot set attribute owner comma player dot user ID. Okay, so now we've assigned 2 attributes to these plots, one being that it's taken, so it's true that this owner or this plot is not available for another player, and we've assigned another attribute which is the owner, and that owner is the player's user ID. So the player who owns that plot will be assigned by their user ID. Okay, so here comes the interesting thing. When you want to go advanced, you can put Billboard GUIs within these. Okay, so for this, we're going to be doing that. Okay, so in your plot, you want to insert a Billboard GUI, and in that Billboard GUI, just a simple text label. Okay, now you want to click your Billboard GUI, go to the properties, then you want to look for something called studs offset in your properties tab, which would be over here. Okay, you're going to see 0, 0, 0. Now the middle 0, this one over here, okay, needs to be 3.5 or higher. Okay, the reason for that is otherwise it's going to be under the plot or it's going to be too high on the plot. So what I like to do is I like to put this at 6 or 5. So I'm going to go with 6. Okay, let's change the background. We can put that at 1. We can go with the text maybe. Let's put the text color as white. And then let's maybe go with a font style, perhaps bold. And I like to use Freedoka. And then the size of the text, I always like to go text scaled, so it matches the size of the actual text label, right? So now what we want to do is we want to label this text label as owner of plot. Okay, or it can be anything, just make sure you reference it right. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to copy this billboard, select the other 3 and paste into selected. Okay, now all of these plots will have a Billboard GUI. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to reference this in your script, okay, which is over this part here, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say local billboard equals plot find first child billboard GUI. Okay, GUI. Right. So if we go into here, it has to match these. So as you can see, that B is a lowercase b. It has to match this. Otherwise, it's going to run into errors. Okay, so just copy that name and paste it into there. Now, what you want to do is you want to now actually get the owner tag. So if billboard and billboard dash find first child, again, you want to make sure it's the same as this. So copy that, paste it in there. Then we want to say billboard dot owner of plot dot text equals player dot name, right? Then double dots, quotation marks with a space. Then you want to put a colon s, right? Plot. So now, because my name is I'm Hulkser, this will basically say I'm Hulkser's plot. Okay. So how do we actually check this now? Let's see. So as you can see, they all given to me. The reason for that is because now we've given a for loop. Because all of these do not have a plot owner, it's going to assign all of them to us. Why? Because we did not insert a break, right? Now, to do that, you want to put the break over here. Okay, so let's go into that. Now, as you can see, it's only assigned one plot to us, which would be this one here. Okay, but now we also want this plot to be removed, or the player to spawn here when we go forward. Right, now let's do that. Okay, so because we have already have this piece, we don't need to recode it. Okay, so all we're going to do is we're going to copy it, go down a few lines and paste it. Instead of player added, we want to say player removing. Okay, so this now triggers when the player leaves the game. Okay, so over here we want to say if plot get attribute taken, then continue end. we want to change most of this. Okay, so take this part and remove it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is going to say if not plot get attribute taken, then continue end. So now it's saying if the plot is not taken, it must skip it. Okay, then we want to say if plot get attribute owner, but now the owner of that plot ID is not equals to the player dot user ID, then continue, then it must skip it. So what we're doing here is if the plot is not taken, we're skipping it. But now if the plot has an owner but the ID is not equals to the player ID who owns that plot, then it needs to skip it also. Now by doing these two lines, we're safe enough to say that that next plot coming up will have the player's ID. So this is one where we want to say plot set attribute taken, comma false. And we want to say plot set attribute owner, comma false, right? So now we're removing it, okay? But now even though we removed it, that Billboard GUI will still be the same. So that's the part you want to script, okay? Copy that, come underneath the set attributes. Then what you want to do here is you want to set this to maybe something like vacant, okay? So this will trigger this will trigger when the player actually leaves the game. It will change the plot text to that, okay? Now we want to print player plot was removed, okay? So now we can safely say that the basic core structure of the plot systems is done, right? If you want to copy this code, there is a link in the description that you can just copy it and paste it into your scripts. But let's test this. Okay, so we can see that all of the other plots do not have my name on it, but this one does. So let's actually click it, go into the plot, right? In your properties tab, scroll all the way down. You'll see an attribute called owner and taken. So the taken is true. The owner's value has my user ID. Now let's check this one. These ones have nothing, right? Because we only own this plot, and all other players who join will not own a plot. Okay, so now when we leave, player plot was removed. So meaning it works because it's now removed our plot, right? So in our next video, we're going to actually go through now how to actually place objects to fit in, right? So we're not going to be doing that in this video as of yet, because what we're doing next is we need the player to spawn at the actual plot, right? So let's do that quickly. So when the player joins, we want their plot to come, or their humanoid to spawn by the plot, right? Okay. So what we're going to do here, we're going to say local char equals player.character or player.character added weight. Okay. Then we're going to say local HUM equals char wait for child humanoid root part. Okay. So I made a mistake here with the HUM. It's HRP for humanoid root part. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set the humanoid root part's C frame to the plot C frame and multiply it with a C frame. Okay. It sounds confusing, but it's really not. So what we're going to do here is you want to make sure that it's in the loop. Okay, so it doesn't happen just once, but every time a player rejoins or perhaps does something. Okay, so I do think it would be safe that we can even take this and put it in there. Okay, just so it doesn't have unexpected bugs, right? So in here, when the plot is taken, it needs to skip it. Otherwise, it needs to give us the plot and all of that. So now when it gives us the plot, we want the humanoid to spawn there. Okay, hrp dot cframe equals plot dot cframe multiplied by cframe dot new 0 comma negative 3 comma 0. So all this is doing is it's making sure that you're not spawning under the plot or under the base plate or something, that you're actually spawning on top. Okay, so let's test that quick. So now as you can see, we spawn at our plot. So if we respawn, let's check now. You see, so now we don't spawn at the player's plot, right? That's because even though we've added a char over there, we need to make sure that we actually have a character added event. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep this HRP section, right? Just copy it for now. So remove this part here with the local char, and then come up to the top where it says player added. Here you want to say player dot character added connect function char, and then all the way at the bottom over here you want to just put an end. Okay, so now you want to take your HRP script or line of code that you copied and just paste it in there. Okay, now what this has done is it should have the player spawn there non-stop. As you can see, the first spawn was there. Let's reset. Second spawn. Now notice how it's given us a second plot, right? So now that's the next issue we need to fix. So we come to the bottom and we realize there's no errors here showing. The reason now is because this player character added event is now overrunning everything. Okay, so remove the first, the last end with the bracket, copy your player character added, and paste that in your loop. Okay, so we want to paste that somewhere about, let me just think here quickly, somewhere around here. Okay, I want to do it somewhere around there, and then just take this and paste it in there. Now it's safe to say that it will work. Okay, so now let's go to the bottom. There we go. Sorry, make sure that's above. There we go. Okay, so let's test it now. So spawn there. Let's refresh. We spawn there again. Let's refresh. And we keep spawning there, right?